So I just wanted to share a thought with you. This is Molly. Say hi, Molly. Um, so I was reading in the Bible in the book of Luke. I like the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, but they're worded slightly different, even though they say much the same things. But the wording slightly different in Luke. More specifically, chapter 8 was talking about Jairus being the ruler of a synagogue, and he had a daughter that was 12 years old, and she was dying. So he goes to Jesus to ask him if he would come and help his daughter to be better. And he gets to where Jesus is, and Jesus agrees, I'll come. And as they're going to Jairus' house, the Bible says there's a woman with an issue of blood. She's been like this for 12 years. That thank you. She come through and pressed through the crowd. She touched the hem of his garment. And the Bible says immediately her issue of blood staunched. And the word staunched means stop flowing. And obviously if your blood stops flowing, you're in trouble. Unless your blood was flowing where it shouldn't be. So I think she had a problem with bleeding. And of course, when you're bleeding, your iron's low, your hematocrit's low, you're anemic, your oxygen's low. All things that are carried by your blood. So when your blood's low, you're going to be tired. I'm thinking that when she pressed through the crowd and touched the hem of his garment, it wasn't that she just casually walked up to him and leaned down and grabbed the bottom of his garment. I think she was literally crawling to get to where Jesus was. Plus, it was so crowded. In the beginning of that chapter, people stood outside and said to Jesus, he was teaching in a house. They said, your mother and your brothers are outside and they would like to see you. But they couldn't get at him because of the press. And it's the first time the press was mentioned in the Bible. But the crowd was so heavy that Jesus' own family couldn't get to where he was. So you can kind of build a picture of how crowded it was. I think another reason maybe that she was down near the ground is because it's easier to crawl between people. When they're pressed shoulder to shoulder, you can squeeze in between them. Anyway, rambling. So she touched, and Jesus said, who touched me? And one of the disciples, I'm paraphrasing, they said, you're kidding, right? I mean, you've been bumped into all day. The crowd is shoulder to shoulder, and you're saying, who touched me? And Jesus said, somebody has touched me. I perceive virtue has gone out of me. Luke is the only one of the Gospels that used the word somebody. It made me think. See, Jairus was the ruler of a synagogue, so he had a position. He had a daughter that was dying. He had a family. He must have had a pretty decent, status in society anyway, because one of the rulers of the synagogue, it says one of his servants came to say, I'm getting ahead of myself, but so he had a position, he had a name, he had a status. Chances are, if you walked into the village and said, hey, who's Jairus and where could I find him? People would be able to tell you who he is and where he lives and a little bit about him. So he would have been what people would call in society a somebody. He had a status. This lady that had the issue of blood, she doesn't have any name mentioned. She spent all her money on physicians and couldn't be healed of any. In fact, the Gospel of Mark says she grew worse. Everything that she was trying everything in her power to get better, and she was failing. No family mentioned, no name mentioned. She didn't have her health. She was dying. She didn't have any money. She spent it all her living, not just her excess, all her living on physicians, and yet grew worse. So society would have labeled her a nobody. No name, no family, no money, no health. You're a nobody. But she came to Jesus, and when she touched the hem of his garment, immediately Jesus said, somebody touched me. Because she was not a nobody to him. She was a somebody to him. And when the woman saw that nothing was hid, like she can't hide it, it's pretty obvious what happened. She confessed to him and to the people around about how that she had touched him, the hem of his garment, and immediately was healed. And the very next word Jesus said to her, daughter. Wow. This nobody is moving up quick in the world. A nobody that come to Jesus, and Jesus said, you're a somebody to me. And the very next words that he said to her was, daughter, your faith has made you whole. Go in peace. The point I was trying to get across is that nobody is a nobody to God. The president, long before me, said all men are created equal. We're all the work of God's hands, and there's nobody that's a nobody. Everybody is a somebody to God. And everybody should be a somebody to everybody. Nobody should be a nobody. Sometimes we feel like we're not important, our needs aren't important, nobody cares. But that's not true. They are important, and somebody does care. So in the meantime, back to Jairus, who was a somebody in society. While Jesus stopped to take care of this nobody's issue, one of the rulers of the synagogue, one of his servants came and said, trouble not the master, your daughter's dead. I think as a dad, instantaneously his heart sank right through the floor. One of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, while I was working as a police officer, I went to a gentleman's home and had to tell him that his son had died. And I watched the life drain right out of his face. I watched his color turn almost instantly pale. And it broke my heart watching his break. I could picture and understand, I think, the feeling that Jairus had when they said, your daughter's dead. And before he could say anything, Jesus come by and said, Jesus turned and looked at Jairus. He said, fear not, believe only. She shall be well. Did you ever think of Jairus' wife? She didn't hear that part. All she knew is Daddy went to talk to Jesus and my daughter stopped breathing. and I haven't heard from anybody. That must have been hard. Jesus went to Jairus' house. He took the girl by the hand and spoke life into her. And it was well. The woman didn't know at the time. I know it's a song and sometimes people make it a cliche, but she didn't know at the time that there was a promise coming down her dusty road. Maybe you feel like a nobody, but you're not. You're somebody to God. And God has not forgotten you. Even when you're watching somebody take their last breath, or feel like your situation is hopeless, God has not forgotten you, and you're somebody to Him. Just wanted to share that with you.